Hi, welcome to Polyphonic Press. I'm Jeremy Boyd, and today I'm going to be reviewing Harvest by Neil Young. Here we go. It's hard to think about now, but at the time of recording Harvest, Neil Young had made a name for himself as a rock and roll guitar player. With his band Buffalo Springfield, he cranked out fast-paced rock songs like Mr. Soul. So when that band ended, he released his first solo album in 1969. It was a commercial failure. He hooked up with the band Crazy Horse and released Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere. It produced some rock hits with Cinnamon Girl and the title track. And then Neil Young went on to join Crosby, Stills and Nash, who had already established themselves as a force to be reckoned with within the folk rock world. The collaboration, however, saw the band going in a new direction with more rock influence, especially on songs like Ohio, which was written by Neil Young about the tragedy at Kent State University. After his time with CSNY, he had so many opportunities. He released another solo album after the Gold Rush, and had finally begun to change people's perception of him from a rock and roll guitar player to a notable singer-songwriter. When Neil Young began pre-production on the follow-up, Harvest, he hadn't anticipated starting an album quite so soon. While still promoting After the Gold Rush, he was scheduled to appear on Johnny Cash's television show in Nashville. The owner of Quadraphonic Sound Studios, Elliot Mazer, invited Neil to check out his new technology, and they assembled a band in the studio, dubbed them the Stray Gators, and started recording that night, and they recorded 4 songs. Because it wasn't too clear whether or not Neil Young was really recording an album, it ended up being recorded in several different studios. The songs A Man Needs a Maid and There's a World were recorded with the London Symphony Orchestra. The song Alabama is an interesting song to listen to now, along with the song Southern Man that was on After the Gold Rush. The two songs were widely critical of the southern United States and portray them as being racist. But Lynyrd Skynyrd responded with their song Sweet Home Alabama by saying that that was merely a stereotype. And later on, Neil Young sort of admitted that, yeah, it was a mistake, and he was just playing into the stereotype of Southern people being racist and bigoted, and just the perception that people have of that. The album produced several singles that are still staples on classic rock radio, and perhaps the best known of these is the song Heart of Gold. Due to a back injury, Young couldn't stand up to play his guitar, and the album ended up being heavily acoustic. He found it much easier to sit down and play his acoustic guitar than his electric. This song features the acoustic guitar heavily, and instead of solos and instrumental breaks, the guitar solos instead, they're played on the harmonica. The song Old Man is about the man that Neil Young bought his California ranch from. He actually still resides there to this day. The song is comparing the life of then 24-year-old Neil Young with the much older men and drawing the similarities between the two in an effort to close the generation gap. And what I love about this song is that the lyrics are timeless, and you can hear it at any given moment and know exactly what the song is about. The Needle and the Damage Done is another song that seems to get a lot of airplay on classic rock radio. It's a song warning of the dangers of heroin and being a product of the 60s and seeing what hard drugs had done to some of his closest friends. Young telling people that this was not something that should be played around with, and the song is just under 2 minutes long and was recorded live at UCLA, and it's just him and an acoustic guitar, which fits the song perfectly, and it makes the listener pay attention, very close attention to the lyrics, and I think is brilliantly effective in its message. I think probably my favorite song on the album is the song Are You Ready for the Country? I really love the bluesy feel of it and the half-beat pause in the turnaround and the sort of disjointed drums and it's a quasi-psychedelic blues song that's just a great group of musicians playing live in the studio and just playing off of each other. The mixing of the album was an interesting process. Some of it was done at the Quadraphonic studio in Nashville, but a lot of it was done at Neil Young's ranch. And some of the album had been recorded there, but for the mixing, they set up this huge PA system that blasted the music onto Young's property, and he would sit in this huge field listening back to it, hearing what it would sound like off the hills, and the natural echo of the landscape around him. I think there's definitely a method to this madness because sonically the album is somewhat of a masterpiece. It does have that dry, dead sound of the 1970s, but it's still very hi-fi and lively. This album is notable for having vocal collaborations from Neil Young's closest friends as well. All 4 members of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young appear on this album at one point or another. Linda Ronstadt sings the backing vocals on Heart of Gold, and James Taylor plays the banjo and sings on that song as well. Although most of this album was acoustic, the closer, Words, Between the Lines of Age, is a slow, electric, spacey song. It's kind of reminiscent of Crazy Horse, but it still has that Nashville feel with the pedal steel guitar accompanying the vocals. Neil Young is one of those guitar players that you know it's him as soon as you hear him. He has a guitar tone that is very distinctly him. And that's what I love about him. As far as I know, the basic outline of this song was written, but the long instrumental parts were largely improvised, and this is what I feel is lacking in a lot of music that gets recorded today. People seem somewhat timid or reserved and aren't really willing to just improvise and see what happens. Or it could be just that the average listener doesn't want to hear it. The album was recorded over a 9-month period in 1971 in a bunch of different studios and live recordings. Although Neil Young had to work within the limitations of a back injury, he managed to create an album that is eclectic, unique, and doesn't conform to just one style. But I think it also captures the spirit of the time and is still a cohesive effort. I think if any other artist had tried to pull this off, it would have fallen flat, but he trusted his instincts, and despite all odds, he created an album that has stood the test of time. So that's Neil Young's Harvest. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and comment below and let me know what you think of this album. And that's about it. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.